That Jesus would be there in the heat of the day is perhaps not surprising, but that he would talk to the woman in what is now public space is astonishing indeed. John chapter 4, verse 29. The woman tells the villagers, "Come and see a man who told me everything I've ever done. Can this be the Christ?" Men were expected not to talk to strange women in public. The narrator, however, emphasizes that they are alone. John chapter 4, verse 8, his disciples had gone away into the town to buy food. Now that they are strangers to one another, one is a woman, the other is a man. Mediterranean rules, that's horrific. It's a horror story. This is a horror story of cultural uncleanness and social deviancy. We don't get that. It's a man talking with a woman. That happens all the time in our individualist culture. So we don't even bother to see the horror of this story. Also, one is a Samaritan and the other innocent, and the other's a Galilean. Doesn't belong. So there's problems, big problems. But potentially, if they were related, this would be private space. And you could talk about private taboo things that would be taboo to talk about in public, like your husband. That's a forbidden subject in the Mediterranean world, in public, but in private, it's perfectly fine. That the subject switches from water to husbands tells us that the space has been transformed. And modern commentators who are Western don't get that, but I'm going to let you see it tonight. That the woman herself is surprised that Jesus would speak to her, yeah. How is it that you, a Judean, would ask something of me, a Samaritan woman? Her reply to Jesus emphasizes that she is both female and a native, a Samaritan, while Jesus is both male and an outsider. Such awareness of gender and origin was quite typical of social interaction in antiquity. The narrator's gloss in chapter 4, verse 9 makes the point even more strongly. John chapter 4, verse 9, the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Judean, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? For Judeans use nothing in common with Samaritans." The Greek term that the New American Bible says, that the New Revised Standard Version translates share in common, synchraumai, literally means to share dishes and eating utensils, and thus points to a concern for ritual purity. An early Pharisaic regulation asserted the perpetual impurity of Samaritan women for Judeans. Quote, "The daughters of the Samaritans," that is to say, Samaritan women, "are deemed unclean as menstruants from the cradle." So imagine, as soon as they're born, they're menstruating. According to Leviticus chapter 15, not only is everything a menstruating woman lies on or sits upon unclean, so also is anyone who touches these items. So if encountering a Samaritan woman is like encountering a woman who has been menstruating from the first moment of her earthly life after having been born, she and her surroundings and everything she touches and everyone she comes in contact with is unclean in a devastatingly horrific way. In addition, if this Samaritan woman is living with a man not her husband, she's also impure even more on that ground. From the point of view of Judean values, then, the whole scene is horrific and appears socially deviant. A curiosity in this passage is this, that the woman, a Samaritan, calls Jesus a Judean. John chapter 4, verse 9. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Judean, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria? for Judeans use nothing in common with Samaritans. But watch this. John chapter 8, verse 48. The Judeans answered Jesus, "Are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?" How fascinating. A Samaritan woman encounters Jesus, calls him a Judean. A group of Judeans upset with Jesus encounter Jesus and call him a Samaritan. John chapter 8, verse 48, the Judeans call the Johannine Jesus a Samaritan. Such name calling is a way of designating someone as an outsider. Jesus is not a Judean, or if Paul was talking about Jesus, then Jesus would be the greatest Judean. Because his understanding of his use of the word Judean is anybody from Syro-Palestine who follows the barbarian Israelite customs, gets his genitals mutilated, and so forth. That would be a Judean. He would think of himself as a Hellene, a civilized Israelite living in the Mediterranean among non-Israelite majorities, as an emigre. But the way the Gospels tend to use the term Judean is somebody living in or around Jerusalem territory. Jesus is one of the Benim Israel. He's a son of Israel, but he's not a Judean. He's a Galilean. He lives in Galilee, right? He's from Galilee, right? Okay. So Jesus is a Galilean. And he's literally, therefore, an outsider to both Judeans and Samaritans. Of course, he's closer in relationship to the Judeans because he's one of the Benim Israel, the sons of Israel. Whereas these bastardized Israelite Samaritans are degenerate. They're like mutants. They don't count. But for either group, Samaritans or Judeans, the labels they give, normally use against each other, suffice to suggest the social distance being expressed between themselves and Jesus. Hey, thanks for watching. Just continue the playlist for the next part of the study. If you have further questions, this is good. They will get addressed, so keep watching. If you found value, please subscribe, like, and share. As always, questions, comments, and criticisms are most welcome. God bless you.